Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. As always, I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin. We got a fine show for you guys planned tonight. Didn't really know what I was going to talk about before I got on tonight, but you know what? I found a great story from the folks over there at AL.com, Alabama's greatest probably news outlet over there when it revolves around sports. They had a tremendous report today about why exactly Scott Cochran left the University of Alabama to take that special teams coordinator job at the University of Georgia. Why he decided to leave, what other schools he might have been talking to prior to the decision to end up joining that Georgia football staff. So it's going to be a quick one tonight. We're just going to go right through, again, this fabulous report from AL.com about the ins and outs of what exactly went on over there at the University of Alabama between Scott Cochran and Nick Saban. A lot of reports about whether or not this was, about a pay cut or anything about that, or whether or not there was a rift between he and Saban. There actually was. So we get a little bit of further details, about what it is like to possibly work there at the University of Alabama for Nick Saban. But before we get into all of that stuff, you guys know what I got to do. I got to ask you for some support. However, wherever you found this show, we'd appreciate it if you give us some thumbs ups, all that good stuff, some likes over on Twitter. Just pound the screen and let those hearts fly. And of course, if you found us on all of our podcast platforms, because we're available wherever, however you get your podcast, give us a 5-star rating, man, and leave a review if you got any questions or some topics you want us to hit on. We will more than certainly answer those if you leave them in the review box. So feel free to do that and flood the comment section here on the broadcast tonight. If you've got any comments about what we're going to talk about, feel free to hop in there. We will address them. So that is that. Let's get right into it. Let's get into this Scott Cochran news. And here's the deal, guys. So everyone knows at this point, if you haven't figured it out, Scott Cochran wants to, at some point, his dream is to at some point be a head football coach. And the only way for him to have done that or to do that in the near future or in the distant future is to get in some type of on-field role like he's in now at the University of Georgia as a special teams coordinator. So here's the deal. According to AL.com, and let me get this gentleman's name because he did a fantastic job and I want to give him full credit. His first name is John. Give me 1 second on his last name. John Talty of AL.com did a fabulous job on this story today. And Matt Zenitz apparently contributed to this as well. A really good deep dive here. I'm not going to go into all the specifics. They ran down all the sources, so please, I'll leave the URL and the link to this in the description of tonight's show. So please, guys, go read this guy's story, these guys' story, because they did a fantastic job. But I'm just going to read some kind of the cliff notes, if you will, the major important things from this report, leading with the fact that apparently Lane Kiffin, when he took the job there at Ole Miss, reached out to Scott Cochran, his former co-worker. Obviously, they spent some time there during Lane Kiffin's time as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Reached out to him and said, hey, man, we've got an opportunity basically for you to become our, special teams coach. We'll give you an opportunity to get on field like you so want to do. Now, there's some conflicting reports as to whether or not what happened there, right? No official offer, according to AL.com, was actually made to Scott Cochran to take that special teams job out there at Ole Miss. Something happened. We don't know what. It just fell through. The report said there might have been some, it's called espionage, if you will, some backdoor channeling that ultimately shut that potential deal down between Lane Kiffin and Scott Cochran to bring him on as the special teams coordinator. Now, according to this report from these guys, there was a little bit of some not necessarily lighthearted feelings, but a rift there between Kirby Smart and Scott Cochran dating back to 2015 in December when Kirby Smart left Alabama to take the head coaching role at Georgia. It's been well reported that Scott Cochran was offered the strength and conditioning coordinator job to come with Kirby Smart. He turned it down. According to this report, that kind of hurt Kirby's feelings because they were friends. So once Kirby kind of got this in his ear that Scott Cochran might be taking a special teams role, might be open to taking a special teams role and qualified to do so, kind of put that little bird in his ear, put that idea in his ear. And all the meanwhile, this deal fell through with Ole Miss. Okay, so don't know why. The reports, even at AL.com, don't exactly specify as to why they fell through, but they did. Okay, some indications again there might have been some espionage tied up behind that. Espionage, I don't know if that's the word to be using here, but it's the word I'm going to use because it's a spy term, right? Spy terms are fun. I like spy terms. Spy Kids, great movie. Random thoughts. My generation loves that movie. You guys might remember that. Some of you older folks might have had some kids like me grow up on the Spy Kids. Junie, man, that guy was a stud. Anyways, let's get back into this report. Some interesting quotes, right? We promised you some little bit of an insight about what it's like to work for Nick Saban. Basically, here's the quote. He made it up, quote unquote, Scott Cochran made up his mind. He made up his mind. I'm leaving. I'm done with the strength thing and dealing with Coach Saban, was the quote from a source close to the situation, according to AL.com. And once you do that, once the Ole Miss thing happened, when you go back, all the problems magnified. So basically what happened was Cochran kind of notified Nick Saban that he was interested in taking these on-field roles and was going to seek them out, including seeking them out at Ole Miss. And then once he returned to Nick Saban and his staff, things got a little, hasty, if you will. So once that happened, apparently Saban, according to this report, started, quote, riding Cochran mercilessly in front of the staff, saying that he was unhappy with the results that were coming out of the locker room or coming out of the strength and conditioning program. Some of the numbers and the statistics apparently coming out of, the performance of the athletes. Saban apparently wasn't, quote unquote, happy with the results that were happening, started riding Cochran, as this says, mercilessly. I don't know why I'm having such problems with the word mercilessly today, but it is a tough one. I think it's a lot of S's, that sound. Anyways, random thoughts from Brooks tonight. You're getting them all. But again, once all this started happening, it was in Kirby Smart's mind that Scott Cochran wanted to take this on-field role. He vetted him, according to the AL.com report here. And again, I would appreciate if you guys show those guys over there some support by going to read this. Just search why Scott Cochran left Alabama, and it'll pop right up. Again, a tremendous job by these guys. A lot of in-depth stuff, but I'm giving you the cliff notes here. Bottom line, when Scott Cochran came back to Alabama after seeking out further employment at Ole Miss somewhere around the time Lane Kiffin was hired out there, things got bad between he and Nick Saban. And, this kind of, I think from what I've been told, Lane Kiffin kind of, seconded these opinions that it's kind of rough there working for Nick Saban, right? He's a tyrant, if you will, it seems to be there at that program. But something's right. I mean, he's doing something right in the sense that he's winning ball games, but he's also doing something wrong in the sense that high qualified people who do a great job at what they do, are leaving his program to seek out further employment elsewhere. So that's the report I wanted to bring you guys tonight. Again, it's going to be a short and very quick episode tonight of SEC Nightly. So that's that. I know I didn't probably give you everything you wanted to know out of it, but if you want more, again, check out AL.com. Those guys did a fantastic job of reporting that. Bottom line, walk it through from start to beginning. Scott Cochran sought out employment as an on-field role there at Ole Miss. Something happened. That deal fell through, even though there was no official deal or offer ever, given out there. So, hey, Lou, what's up, baby? My boy Lou Hayes tuning in from out there in Pennsylvania. We talked today, man. I don't know where you're at nowadays. But anyways, I just sidetracked the whole show to show you some love. So I just showed you some love. My boy Purple Hayes. Go follow this guy on Twitter. He's legendary. Anyways, back to this timeline. Sought out employment as a special teams on-field role at Ole Miss. Something fell through. Went back to, assuming roles as a strength and conditioning coordinator there at Alabama. Nick Saban was making his, work life pretty hectic and pretty hellacious, it seems like, from this report. And then cut ties. Off to Alabama, off to Georgia as a special teams coordinator. And I think all this story aside, all the reporting aside, and I think it's really, really great stuff. Chad Lindbergh showing love. Georgia signee right here, Chad Lindbergh, spoke with us at Bulldog Maven. We appreciate you for tuning in to tonight's episode. UGA signee, you guys, my Georgia followers, go show Chad Lindbergh some love, buddy. We appreciate you for tuning in to tonight's broadcast, even if it's for a brief moment. I'm sure Chad loves the Scott Cochran hire, right? I mean, we won't get his comments here. We won't ask him to come out here and make his comments known. But you got to love the hire, right? From the University of Georgia right there, and Kirby Smart. And it's something, amen, Chad Lindbergh, when it comes to this signing, it is a go dogs moment, right? And it wasn't about, stealing a coach from the University of Alabama. It wasn't about anything like that. And I agree, Chad. It is going to be great for the University of Georgia and their program because, as a guy who used to play football, and I don't do it anymore, I haven't done it in quite a long time, at the college level at least. I played some, intramural football like the rest of us has-beens. But as a guy who's played the position and played some special teams in my day, former long snapper, look, I'm here to tell you, there's not a ton of X's and O's going on in the special teams worlds. Yes, there is some techniques, right? There is staying in your lane, doing all that great stuff, but a lot of it as a special teams coordinator is about discipline and about effort. The same two things, and energy for that matter, the same three things, if you will, that made Scott Cochran such a great strength and conditioning coordinator over there at Alabama. And I'm going to tell you what, the guy has a dream to one day become a head coach of a football program. And the only way for him to have done that is to get on the field. And it didn't look like Alabama was ever going to give him to him because he made it very, very clear. Again, according to a report from AL.com, he made it very, very clear to Nick Saban that he wanted an on-field role. And Saban basically said, hey, we're going to have you spend some more time on the field getting it figured out. You're basically going to have to come be an intern on field to figure out special teams. I don't understand that for the life of me. I do not understand how you have a very, very highly motivated individual, a very, very successful individual, someone who in the state of Alabama had commercials as a strength and conditioning coordinator, absolutely one of your many faces of your brand out there in Alabama. You let him walk because you didn't think he was qualified to be a special teams coordinator. Meanwhile, two of your competitors, your immediate competitors, one in your division and the other in your conference, and the big dog on the other side of your conference, are seeking out this man for the same position that you don't think he's qualified for. I think it was a mistake from Nick Saban. I don't think he handled this correctly, but again, I don't think he cares, okay? These guys, when they get this successful, at this point, they think they can do no wrong, and for good reason. The guys won, a handful of, we'll see you later, Chad Lindbergh. Appreciate you for tuning in. You guys go show him some love if you haven't already. Chad Lindbergh, going to be a good one at the University of Georgia. A really, really strong tackle, and they don't make them that big every single day. I'm going to tell you that right now. A monster of a man and a really smart football player as well. He's going to have a good career at the University of Georgia. And I'm not just saying that because he stopped in on the broadcast tonight, although I do appreciate him for doing so. But that's the story, right? Again, it's about Scott Cochran wanting to get on field, to have a dream to get on the field someday and become a football coach, not just a strength and conditioning coordinator. This is about a guy who loves building relationships with, talented young men and developing those relationships and developing those young men into full-grown men by the time they leave that program. It's no coincidence that when Mark Ingram, and Derrick Henry, when they gave their Heisman Trophy ceremony speeches, there is no coincidence that Scott Cochran was involved and credited for the success of those two individuals, okay? There is no coincidence. And when you go talk to any successful Alabama football player that's come out of that program, those guys included in this class that are entering the NFL draft, if you ask them outside of that coaching staff or outside of Nick Saban or your specific position coach, who is one individual that has helped you become the player you are today, I guarantee you it won't be long before they say the name Scott Cochran. And that right there is a testament of, a little bit of a downtick there at Alabama. And I know they filled the role with two guys up there from the north that are very, very analytics driven, and that's all great. And it may turn out tremendously. They might not ever have another season-ending injury, and whoever replaced Scott Cochran over there may, have a statue built of them and not of Scott Cochran there in Tuscaloosa. That very well could happen. But what I do know, what I can tell you is that Scott Cochran is going to be a benefit to the University of Georgia program, and that's that. And he left under the conditions at Alabama because he wasn't happy, and now he is getting the opportunity to be happy and to chase his dreams there as a head football coach, or one day to become a head football coach. So that's going to be our show for tonight. I just wanted to get those out, get that report out. We may or may not be putting out a story tomorrow, depending on whether or not I get some clearance on the guys over there that wrote that story. So we see what I can and can't say and what I have to cite and all that good stuff. And give the credit where the credit is due, because I think that's very important in this industry. But before we let you guys go tonight, I will tell you, as soon as we get off, it's 9:20, a little bit earlier than expected. And typically I shut these things off at about 9:30, 9:35, and then go figure out what I'm going to do the rest of the night before I go to bed at about 12:30, 1 a.m. But I'm going to do a YouTube breakdown. I don't know what I'm going to do. If you've got some type of suggestion, what you want to see, I think I'm going to take the All-22 film I've got from the Sugar Bowl and do something defensively. I haven't done anything on the defensive end of the side of the football. You know what, Top Dog? We will take some questions. You want me to take some questions right now? We'll take some questions. Flood them in. I will rant and rave and fill time like you're supposed to do as a good radio host until some of those questions roll in. And Top Dog, you can't be asking to take questions and not throw one in yourself. So feel free to ask a question yourself as well, Top Dog. But anyways, back to what we were talking about, the YouTube film sessions. We're going to break something down. I don't know what we're going to do. I think it's going to be defensive side of the football. I might do some scheme fits, some run fits, what made them successful during that game in that Sugar Bowl against Baylor, other than Baylor just having a horrendous offensive line. I mean, it was bad offensive line play there from the Baylor Bears in that football game. So, Top Dog, doesn't look like any questions are rolling in, so I'm going to take that off the screen. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. That being said, I am going to cut out here tonight. We, had some things going on with Bulldog Maven over there. We got some news coming down the pipe, a little bit of the ways down the pipe, some big news and some great news, some growth over there. And it's all because of you guys, the guys that support, and gals for that matter. Guys is a universal term at this point. It's 2020. You guys and gals that support us over there at Bulldog Maven, we cannot thank you enough. And we're steadily growing. We're going to continue to grow. And another thing I've got to ask you, a little bit of a passion project for me, and some of you guys might relate to this. I'm starting this thing called G5 Recruiting. If you don't mind, go search that out on Twitter. G5 spelled just like the airplane, stands for Group of Five, right? The mid-majors. G5 Recruiting. I'm starting it. I'm going to write a weekly, at least once a week, I'm going to write a featured article about a guy who I think is, maybe that mid-major caliber of football player. Maybe end up at a Southern Illinois, or might end up at a school like Memphis, or might end up at a school like Arkansas State. Schools that, the SI All-Americans of the world, the Rivals.coms, the 247sports.com, they're not really covering these guys as well as, they possibly can, because they can't, right? There's just too many people out there, too many highly talented football players. But the least I can do is take a little bit out of my time and a little bit out of my efforts throughout the week to shine a little light on some of those guys. And I would appreciate your help by just, going over there and following and maybe throwing us some shout outs on Twitter for, I'm not going to say it's a charitable cause, but it's a good cause. I mean, I was one of those guys, right? I was one of those football players that tried to play offensive line at 6 foot nothing, 6 foot nothing, 290 nothing, right? Was way too fat to be 6 foot tall. Anyways, I was one of those guys waiting on a mid-major offer, and it just never came because whether it be I didn't publish or, market myself correctly, or whether I didn't seek out the proper opportunities, it's just something I'm passionate about. I don't want the same things to happen to other kids that happen to me because I didn't quite get the exposure that I thought I needed and deserved. Let's take some of these questions that are rolling in. I'm just going to fire them off right here. Philip Hudson, appreciate you for tuning in tonight. First of all, Brooks, is Jarvis Jones still on staff as a student assistant? As far as I know, Jarvis Jones, Sackman Jones, is still on that roster, that staff helping out outside linebackers. I'm assuming he's gotten his degree at this point. So maybe he's graduated out, if you will, from the GA and the student assistant role. But from my understanding, I have not heard anything developing, Philip, on the Jarvis Jones front, and I could be wrong because I don't know at all. I'm not going to be one to sit here and lie to you and act like I do. My last inclination, my last sighting, and information on Jarvis Jones, he's still on that coaching staff, and that's something they don't really publicize anyways. You can't find student assistants really on the UGA staff board. You're not going to find GAs really listed there unless you really, really search deep dive into those. Do you think Georgia is going to beat Bama twice? This is from CSJ 2010. That's a username right there, CSJ. Anyways, going to Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama is going to be tough. Beating a team twice in one season is going to be really, really tough. But here's what I will tell you. Mac Jones is likely to be the starter in that Week 3 matchup, September 19th. Georgia, for the first time, for I don't know how long, has the better quarterback in this matchup for the very first time in a long time. I think it goes back probably to the year Aaron Murray got his teeth knocked out in the SEC championship game by that illegal hit. I think Aaron Murray was the best quarterback on that field, but it didn't quite matter because Alabama routed him. But what I'm telling you is, yes, I do think Georgia has an opportunity to beat Alabama twice next season, but here's the good news for Georgia fans. They're not going to have to. They're not going to have to beat them twice. You're just going to have to beat them once and make it to the SEC championship game and out of the SEC championship game with one loss, as is the story for the rest of the season. Here we go. On to the next one. Out of all the linebackers, who is the best? Nolan Smith, Adam Anderson, Nakobe Dean. So here's one thing off the top dog. How about that? Let's separate the outside linebackers from the inside linebackers. Nakobe Dean plays inside the box. Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson play outside the box. They play outside linebacker or out on the edge. So those guys are predominantly pass rushers. They might play a little bit in space. But if I were to take one of those three guys, who's going to make the most impact? I'll change your question a little bit. Who's going to make the most impact next season? Got to be Nakobe Dean for me. Somebody's got to eat up those Tate Crowder reps. Not many guys left that outside linebackers room. In fact, nobody left that outside linebackers room from the University of Georgia. So it's just as crowded as ever, if not getting more crowded, with guys like McCall Sherman coming onto the roster. So who's going to make the bigger impact next year in 2020? Nakobe Dean. He's going to play a lot as he did as a freshman, but he's going to be on the field all the time, not just in a third down role. Let's see here. Do we land Tony Grimes? Look, here's the deal. Something I learned from a guy who I admire in this space. I'm not big into predictions anymore with this kind of stuff. I'll kind of tell you my leaning right now. Yeah, I would lean Tony Grimes. Tony Grimes ends up at Georgia for one reason. It's something he told the Bulldog. Maybe he told our lead recruiting analyst Blaine Gilmer a couple weeks back in a story we published on Tony Grimes. He said, quote, "I want to play next, alongside an elite corner." Well, Georgia's got the most elite of elite corners right now in Keely Ringo in that 2020 class. So he'll be there fully ready by the time fall 2021 rolls around when Tony Grimes assumably enrolls in whatever college he goes to. So, that recruitment is long from over, as are all of the recruitment processes in 2021. Still really, really early. But yeah, I think if I were to lean somewhere right now, I think I would lean towards Tony Grimes ending up at Georgia. So I think that's where we are going to wrap it up tonight. But I will appreciate you guys if, like my boy Top Dog says, hit that like button on your way out, y'all. I appreciate you guys for joining in tonight on SEC Nightly. I'm going to riff a little bit longer so I can get this intro and outro music going on. You guys know I love this stuff right here. This is one of the best. freemusicarchive.com. Shout out to those guys. When it's free, it's for me, baby. Let's see here. Do we got anything going on here? There it is. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. This has been SEC Nightly. I've been your humble host, Brooks Austin. As always, we do this Monday through Friday, typically. Okay? Sometimes I got to take a couple days off. I don't know if you guys know, but I kind of put some grind into this. And we're going to put some grind into this a little bit more after this. We're going to go straight to the YouTube breakdown, straight to the film sessions. Again, a little bit confused as to what I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to tell you that right now. Before y'all go, I got to tell you one more time. Support G5 recruiting. Very, very important. I think it's a good cause. I think it's, one that I'm passionate about, which is, my number one thing when it comes to writing. Philip Hudson, I appreciate you. Great show on your end, guys. All you listeners, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Always got a nice haircut, Top Dog. Haircuts are important. You got to at least look the part, even if you aren't. We'll see you guys on the back end. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thursday night, we'll be here. Or Friday night. It's Friday night tomorrow night. Y'all go have fun.